Knicks post-game show. Tonight hosting OKC, the Thunder's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really emerging at 16 points. And the veteran Chris Paul, 21 points, 12 assists. All Thunder tonight. Final count over the Knicks, 126-103. Home crowd filing out. OKC now has won 16 of its last 21 games. One of the biggest surprises in the league. Great to have you with us from our Delta MSG studios. Bill Pito, Alan Hanawell, Zerbiak. Stat sheet tonight, guys, does not lie. Knicks made only 4 threes, while OKC made 12 threes. That's the game right there.
Also, the Thunder only committed 4 turnovers, which is a low for an opponent this season for the Knicks. That also shows you how easily they ran their offense without much pressure from Knicks defense. But the shooting, well, we've talked about it all year, how the shooting has been an issue, right? This is the 4th time this season the Knicks have shot under 20% from 3. Never mind 30% from 3, it's under 20. Like, that is a struggle when you go, we said it at halftime, they were 0 for 8, they missed a ton of threes, in that first half. And you said it too. Once they missed a few of those threes in the first quarter, it seemed like they got gun shy and didn't want to take them anymore. And in today's NBA, you've got to have a three-point shot to be able to keep up.
Yeah, you got to keep confidence with your jump shot. You really do. You got to keep it at a point where, it's not a streaky type thing, whether or not you make threes. When you take those threes, you got to be balanced. They got to be in rhythm, and you got to believe that you're going to make them as an individual and as a team. And it's unfortunate that the Knicks just can't get on that type of streak, and they don't have those type of guys that have that confidence and that ability to be good three-point shooters and be consistent three-point shooters, because you need that in this league. And as a result, they play hard. They go after the boards. They, try to play intensely on the defensive end of the floor, but it makes the game tough when you can't, keep the defense honest by knocking down some of those deep shots.
61-48 after 2 quarters of play, and then Wally, OKC blew it wide open. OKC blew it wide open in the third quarter.
Yeah, it really was, and that's when Chris Paul and company, they just started to really. The three-point shot again, and Danilo Gallinari was a huge part of it. All of a sudden he went from 13 to 22 points. Chris Paul started to really get aggressive in the pick and roll, and the Knicks coverages were just not good.
A lot of switching, right? This was a ton of switching and mismatches. It just felt like the Thunder offense was able to get and do whatever they wanted to do, and Chris Paul being in the middle of it is no surprise.
Yeah, and he just, look at Chris Paul. Every single play, it's Chris Paul and pick and roll. It's Chris Paul and pick and roll. It's Chris Paul and pick and roll. And
it's a blown coverage
there's
there.
Mitchell Robinson in the pick and roll, and he's looking around like, what were we supposed to do? And at some point, this is why the Knicks coaching staff adjusts to a switch, because they weren't switching on a lot of those plays, and it just leads to wide open shot, dunk, wide open shot, dunk. So at least if you switch, you're going to make a guy score one-on-one over Mitchell Robinson like Chris Paul, which he's going to have to make a toughish type shot, but that's not good defense either. So the Knicks just struggled in that pick and roll in the third quarter.
Boy, Chris Paul, 34 years old. He had 6 of his 12 assists in that third quarter. And how about Gallo? We talked about Danilo Gallinari in the pregame show. He's averaging 19 a game. Miami wanted him. Miami wanted him at the trade deadline. They couldn't work out a contract extension. He's unrestricted this summer. This guy's going to get another huge contract.
Yeah, I think he's actually one of those players that once he went through the injuries that he went through, which was really during his prime, and he missed an entire season. But as he's gotten now older, he doesn't have a lot of mileage on him, right? Well, I know he's been banged up. I know he has injuries. But because of those injuries and because of that time, he actually looks like somebody that is in that athlete nirvana where he's smart enough and his body can still do it. He looks so comfortable out there. That shot is something we remember from way back. It's been 12 years, believe it or not.
I can't believe it's been 12 years. You believe that?
We're all getting old.
Isn't that unbelievable?
But he's the prototype stretch 4 kind of player that when he came into the league, we didn't really know about guys like him yet, but he's become what everybody in the league needs. And I really think it's going to be interesting this summer. I know he's over 30 and he's had injuries, but there's going to be some teams that are going to want to give him some money because he's proving this year, 19 points a game, he can still play at a high level.
He can, and it's all about his health. It's all about keeping healthy. And as you get older, you figure out how to play at a speed and how to keep your body right and tuned to the point where it can play every single day. Because if you don't put in the time off the floor and you get injured, the end is really near. Mm-hmm. And this is the point where Danilo Gallinari has to do the things off the floor to keep himself right, keep himself healthy. Starts with eating right to getting all your work in the weight room, and it looks like he's doing it, and he's having a really good year this season.
You look at OKC, they trade Paul George, everybody says forget this year. They get the 5 number 1 draft picks back. But with Gallo and Shea Gilgeous.
Don't forget Westbrook, too.
And Westbrook's out of there.
MVP.
They're a lock for the playoffs, guys.
Yeah.
They're sixth. They're not going to fall below eighth, worst case scenario. Boy, they are a model for retooling and getting things in a different direction.
They were good. So you got to remember they were good.
The foundation was there.
Yeah, the foundation was there.
Yeah.
But you also traded away 2 superstars. So if you're going to trade away 2 superstars, you're not stupid. You're not going to get nothing for them, right? So you're going to retool. You're going to get a guy like Chris Paul to match the contract. You're going to get a guy like Gallinari and a prospect in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and then the pieces come together, and they don't really take a step back at all. They actually take a step forward. So that's very fortunate. But the fact that they also have banked all those draft picks, that's an impressive job by Sam Presti.
And I think, we talked about Presti. We talked about the draft picks before the game, 13 of them in the next 6 drafts, which is a first-round picks, which is insane.
Wow.
But I also think, let's shout out our Long Island guy, Billy Donovan, and the job that he has done. I mean, you can't overlook also how well organized they are, how that offense had to probably be retooled when you consider the players that you moved on from. And yet they were able to take a player in Chris Paul and where he is in his career and kind of retool the offense, what they've done with Gilgeous-Alexander and allowing him to grow. And there's other players on this team that you have to look them up in the book to find out who's this guy and where's he from.
Yeah.
But they're fitting into the system. I think what Billy Donovan has done, he's been a terrific coach. Brad Stevens, there hasn't been too many guys that have made that jump from college to the NBA and have been effective. And I think he's been fantastic.
He has, and he's very good with point guards because he was a point guard in his own right. So he's very smart at quarterbacking a team. So when he has a great point guard to work with, he knows how to coach them up.
And the funny story with him is that so after he was done with the Knicks and he didn't know what to do with his career, this is back in the 80s as his playing career ended, he actually reached out to Rick Pitino and said, I want to coach. And Rick Pitino said, you were a quiet player. You really weren't a big voice in the locker room. I don't think you'll be a good coach. Forget about it. Get back into Wall Street. Do what you're doing. Like, he didn't think he could be a coach, but he kept pursuing it. And a couple of years later, when Pitino went to Kentucky, he took him with him as a grad assistant. So he started at the age of 30 as a coach, and it's worked out really well.
It has. Meantime, bright spot for the Knicks. Elfrid Payton had a season-high 20 against Utah the other night. Tonight, Wally, he had 18 points. He had 8 assists, 9 rebounds. Elfrid Payton playing well again. Follow MSG Networks on Twitter to vote on the Knicks Montefiore doing more player.
And he would add a triple-double, but he didn't play in the fourth quarter because the Knicks were playing all the young guys, and it was garbage time because the lead had gotten out of the
He needed 2 assists and 1 rebound.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know, and he didn't get any minutes in the fourth, but he played well. He really did. And, he went right back at Chris Paul. That was my matchup to watch.
Well done.
Alan Hahn, wink.
Well done.
And he made him defend, and that's what you got to do with Chris Paul. But, it's just disconcerting that the other guys couldn't get going because Elfrid's a very willing passer. He's a guy that wants to get guys involved on the offensive end of the floor. He needs shooters around him because he is a facilitator, and he doesn't look for his shot at all because he doesn't really trust his jump shot. But it's just unfortunate they can't, capitalize from what he brings on a nightly basis in the last 2 nights.
It's amazing he had 9 assists with the way the Knicks shot the basketball tonight.